Hello everyone, and welcome to the Manatee Glens Report. I'm Mary Ruiz, President and CEO of Manatee Glens, the leading specialty hospital and outpatient practice for mental health and addictions in our region. Today's show is titled Under the Influence, Teens and Alcohol and Drug Abuse, and we're going to do something a little different. We've brought together a panel of experts for a roundtable discussion on a topic that's very important to teens and their parents. I'd like to welcome to the show Jane Bistock. She is a clinical supervisor with Manatee Glens for substance abuse and prevention. Welcome, Jane.
Thanks.
And Katie Curran, who's director of the Source Theater Company, an award-winning educational program produced by Planned Parenthood of Southwest and Central Florida. Welcome, Katie.
Thank you.
And we have our real experts, our teens, Christina Norsha and Natalie Alvia. Welcome to the both of you. Thank you all for coming and appearing on the Manatee Glens Report. Jane, let's begin with you. Some parents feel conflicted about talking about alcohol and drugs, maybe because they experimented with drugs when they were in college, or maybe because they drink alcohol now. What's your advice to parents to overcome those conflicts when they bring up the same subject with their teens?
Absolutely. It's important to remember that drug and alcohol use is such a serious issue, and kids need good education, and the best place to get that education is at home. So they need to be informed of the dangers and consequences of drug and alcohol use.
So should parents admit to their own use, or?
I think that's a personal preference. I think the bigger issue is to really educate them on what the dangers are and what the consequences can be if they choose to use drugs and alcohol. The education needs to be the major piece there.
Right, and parents do know what the risks are.
Right.
For drinking and driving and using pills that you don't maybe know what they are. So focus on the risks, is your advice.
Absolutely.
Christina and Natalie, do you know teens who are have been harmed by alcohol and drugs? And thinking about those situations, what do you think their friends or maybe their parents might have done differently to prevent that harm?
Well, unfortunately, in Sarasota alone, I mean, I do know a few people that are conflicted with this issue and with drugs and alcohol, and they don't have a great relationship with their parents. So that plays like a really big role in that aspect, you know, to their abuse with the drugs and alcohol. Mm-hmm. So
definitely. I think it's such a growing epidemic, especially in high school and with kids trying to deal with all the pressures and everything growing up, and they use drugs and alcohol kind of as an escape. And you know, I think any high school kid will be exposed to it if they go to a party, or, you know, there's always one of those friends that get kind of trapped in that whole scene. So.
One of the things I'm seeing, I've been working with young people for many years now, and I've seen an increase in parents who abuse drugs and alcohol. With the baby boomer generation now having teenage children, I have a lot more young people who come to me whose parents are either drug users, smoking pot, binge drinking, and there is a tremendous media influence. Almost every nightly TV show has parents binge drinking in front of their children, and so our kids are really inundated. And I think when we're talking about parents and influence, their kids are getting a mixed message. Yeah. And it's not that adults can't have a legal, you know, drink and enjoy having a good time, but I think we as parents really need to look at the message that we are giving our kids as far as substance abuse, and that our kids are growing up seeing prescription drug abuse and alcohol abuse from their parents. And a lot of times with for instance, prescription drugs, the first place that kids get it is from the medicine cabinet.
From their own medicine cabinet, for sure. So used to be that we had this shadowy image of a drug dealer, you know, who pulls you aside in the alley and sells. Now you can go in grandma's medicine cabinet and get her pain pills. So what do you advise parents when it comes to alcohol in the house and prescription medications in the house?
Well, I think that prescription medication are such a huge issue right now and so dangerous for teens and adults who get their hands on prescriptions that aren't theirs. It's important that they're disposed of. Oftentimes we leave medication in the cabinet that we don't
might take
use
one or
anymore.
two and then they just sit there.
And they're sitting there just waiting for somebody to take them.
And our Manatee Sheriff's Office has a drop-off program. People can call the sheriff's administrative line and get directions on where to bring leftover prescription medications.
Absolutely.
What Manatee Glens advises parents, because KT, you're right, kids typically tell us that they start using about age 9. Their first, where did they get it? Their parents' liquor cabinet.
Right.
So we advise parents lock up alcohol and drugs as if they were a loaded gun.
Mm-hmm.
Because they are.
Because they are.
Absolutely.
Yes, because they are. So we've talked a little bit about kids who maybe don't have a great relationship with their parents. Are there certain kinds of kids that are kind of drawn to alcohol and drugs, a kind of vulnerability that they might have?
I think it could root from a history of addiction. I mean, it is hereditary, especially if they've dealt with it with family members, and
It might seem normal to them.
Exactly, that's
how
what
they
they
grew
were
up.
raised with. They feel like that's what they're supposed to do.
It's a natural way to handle stress.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Because that's the role model that they're
Right, right.
older
And it's almost
generation has.
inevitable sometimes if somebody is exposed to it for so much, such a long period of time, what else would they do?
Right. There's certain risk factors that can contribute to a teen's drug and alcohol use. Mental illness, mental disorders such as depression or ADHD, or a history of trauma.
Attention deficit
Yes.
hyperactivity disorder.
Yes,
Yeah.
or a history of trauma can oftentimes lead a kid to using drugs and alcohol as a way to cope with some of those negative
So what might be an
emotions.
example of trauma?
Trauma would be maybe past abuse, whether it be sexual or physical abuse, or something significant that happens in the home, maybe even divorce if they're not, adjusting real well to
Or
those
loss of a
changes.
parent or a close
Exactly.
grandparent.
Right.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's true. So
Also peer pressure, I'm sure, with the rates of parties and
Absolutely.
friends and influences. So
Peer pressure and a lack of supervision in the home tends to be a huge risk factor.
or comfortability in the home. If you're given a lot of trust and the parent trusts the kid to go out and party, and they're kind of naive to what's really going on, they don't know the whole image of it, the whole
yeah,
picture.
my son didn't appreciate my rules when he was in high school because
I'm sure he does now.
I think he does. When he was in high school, if he wanted to go to a party, I would have to meet the parents if I didn't know them. And I would ask them, are you going to be there? And are you
Right.
serving alcohol?
Right.
And he tolerated that drill pretty well till senior high. And he goes, Mom, I don't go to some parties because you do that.
Yeah.
And I go, son, the plan is working then. You're choosing the right parties to go to. So I think one of the things we parents experience is peer pressure too. Parents who don't set reasonable rules, who think it's bad to limit where their kids go or how late they come in and who they associate with. And so I think we're going to take a look at a clip that is a public service announcement produced by The Source that addresses a teen party that has some scary parental supervision. So let's watch that now.
Dude, isn't your mom here?
Bro, don't worry about her, man. She's cool.
It's Dakota's mom!
I don't even want to know what they're doing downstairs. All I know is they're here and they're safe.
You guys, it's the cops!
Did you know hosting a party with underage drinkers is a crime? You could face a $1,000 fine and up to a year in jail. Get the facts at drugfreemanatee.org.
KT, why did The Source feel that they needed to produce this clip? That party scene is pretty outrageous, but not that unusual, perhaps.
Well, actually, the Manatee County Substance Abuse Coalition came to the Source Theater and was really wanting to make an effort to target parents as well as young people about the issue of substance abuse. And we're seeing a big increase in parents thinking they were perhaps protecting their children.
By having them home and
by
taking
having
it home.
them home. So yeah, we'll have the party at our house, we'll take the key. But yet kids would come to that party and then leave, and a lot of accidents, fights breaking out. And so we've seen a big increase in parents getting arrested for hosting underage drinking parties, because sometimes they can lead to death, violence, overdose, just as if the party was happening on the beach or in the woods. Or
drinking and driving.
Drinking and driving.
So Christine and Natalie, would you go to a party where there's no alcohol served? Does that sound like not fun?
No, I don't think that you have to rely on a substance to have fun. I mean, if you do, then obviously you need to work on something.
So there's some good parties going on out there without alcohol and
absolutely.
drugs. That's a relief.
Right.
That's a relief. So, you know, sometimes I think we feel like everybody's doing it.
Right.
Everybody's doing it. Are there kids who feel that way, and it must put them in a terribly isolating situation, to feel like they're the only ones not doing alcohol and drugs?
You know, the media also plays like a really big part in it as well. With, you know, you see these celebrities and they're in and out of rehab, or you see these shows that are promoting house parties and wild escapades, I would say. And, you know, a lot of the kids are like, oh, I want to be like that, I want to do that. So, you know, the kids that are out doing it, and then the ones aren't, they're seeing into the light, not to light, but, you know, seeing into this scene, and they're like, okay, well, I want to do that. I want to be a part of this scene. I want to be like those people on TV. And it's just, it's sad.
And it's a lack of education as well. I mean, this negative behavior is being glorified. Like, this is, you know, our generation, this is what we should be doing. This is what, you know, we're brought into. And it, you know, to not make smart choices.
And the truth is, the majority of kids aren't using. Or we'd have a much bigger problem. And so even though it looks like everybody's using, everybody's not using. And those kids are feeling uncomfortable. You know, how do you party? How do you have a good time when you don't feel like alcohol and drugs is for you? So what advice would you give a teen like that?
I would say keep a level head. I mean, even if your best friend kind of gets sucked into that world, you know, stay true to yourself and make smart decisions and try to help them with their decisions as well. So I don't think real friends will drag you down with them. I think that, you know, you try to keep each other to make good decisions. And
so Jane, there's a concept of resiliency that counselors talk about with young people that protects them from harm from alcohol and drug abuse. So what does that look like for a teenager?
You know, resiliency is the idea of finding more positive ways to deal with situations that aren't necessarily the best. So, you know, if they're having problems, developing those coping skills to be able to deal with those problems in more, you know, pro-social ways.
So that might include being actors at the source. Exercise, music.
Deep breathing.
Absolutely. Reading.
Pursuing your passions, whatever they might be, if it's skateboarding or
journaling,
dancing,
talking about your problems with a trusted friend.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Being productive. Counseling.
If your parents aren't helpful, you can adopt a parent, can't you? You can find an adult.
Oh,
like KT.
I do. My family's amazing,
but you know, you can always use a spare parent to support you.
Right.
So kids who don't have that good relationship with their parents, they can find an adult where they feel like maybe they can develop.
Right.
And sometimes even when you have a good relationship with your parent, I have found that kids, it takes a village, because there are so many pressures out there, and that sometimes people are afraid to talk to their parents because they don't want to disappoint them, that they're being pressured, or that they are having trouble focusing, or that they might, you know, be worried that they have ADD or in trouble at school. And so having other adults in their lives is vitally important, that we be there for our kids as a community.
And I think from a parenting perspective, if your teen comes home with some upsetting news, the best thing to do is not to get upset.
Right.
Don't reinforce their fear.
Right, exactly.
Listen, ask about their feelings, praise them for
coming to you.
Be
grateful that they did.
And don't act at that moment.
Right.
You know, we'll work on this together, and we'll talk about this some more, and then talk to someone who can maybe help you know what the right thing to do is. So I think parents need a little coaching too.
They do.
Sometimes. You know, some parents have a mindset that alcohol, okay, what a relief. They're only doing alcohol. It's not drugs. So, Jane, does the latest brain research really support that idea?
Absolutely not. And that's really giving kids an inconsistent message.
Back to Katie's point about the mixed message.
Absolutely. And they need to understand what the dangers are of drug and alcohol use. Also, the earlier the onset of experimentation with alcohol, the greater the chance of addiction is, and the greater the chance that they experiment with other drugs.
So a parent's goal should be delay the first drink as long as humanly possible.
They need to really set expectations and have, you know, the structure in the home that's not okay. So
my son, if he watches this program, he's really going to have something to complain about, because I'm going to tell another story on him. When he was a teenager, I said, son, if we have any concerns, or for no reason at all, we will drug test you. How do you feel about that? And I had expected him to say, you don't trust me, my privacy. And he thought about it for a minute, and he said, you know, I can tell my friends I can't use because my parents drug test me.
Wow.
So I think parents need the courage to set the limits that allow teenagers to back up what they really want to do anyway, which is to stay safe and be successful. So what do you think?
I think that's smart. I might use that.
Good.
I think that's very smart, actually.
What brain science does show is that our brains aren't really mature, finished, growing until we're 25. So you're only going to get smarter from here. That's the good news.
That's a good thing.
And if we assault that growing brain with any substance, then we're twisting that growth pattern.
Right.
And the consequences are lifelong. And so when parents come to me for advice and they say, well, he's doing this or that, should I be concerned? And my response is, how much brain damage is acceptable to you and your child?
It's actually interesting you say that. The play that we're touring right now, called The Holding Cell, that reflects on prescription drugs, my character, I actually get arrested by Natalie, who plays the cop. And
Natalie make a good cop.
Yeah, she's very scary. She does make a good cop. But the last scene we have, she kind of has a monologue directed towards me, and she says, you know, you're only 16, you're mixing all these chemicals into your head, and it's not even fully developed yet. No wonder you feel like you're fading away, because I really lose like a self of, individuality.
Yes.
Right, exactly.
It does change your sense of yourself and your perception of yourself. You were talking about risk factors. Self-esteem is one of them for sure.
Absolutely.
And do people who are using really feel good about themselves?
They depend on a substance to make themselves feel better.
Yeah, for sure. So we have another source clip about the medicine cabinet that we were talking about. So let's look at that now.
Okay. I don't know. My mom said I should be home at midnight.
Don't worry. I'll make sure I get you home. Happy anniversary.
We're just gonna take her home, all right?
Take her home, she's not breathing!
OxyContin, oxycodone, hydrocodone, Vicodin, the list goes on. They're all prescription pain pills. They're all available in many medicine cabinets. They're easily available from doctors, and Florida is experiencing an epidemic. We're losing 7 people a day statewide to OxyContin or prescription pain pill overdoses. Jane, this is synthetic heroin, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
Do you think people really understand that when they look at that innocent white pill?
Unfortunately, no, because the problem is doctors, educated people, prescribe that medication, and they don't, and it doesn't have the negative stigma attached to it as street drugs. So unfortunately, they don't see it as being quite as harmful, and it really is, because this medication is getting into the wrong hands, and serving no true medical purpose.
Highly addictive.
Highly addictive.
So physicians are treating pain, legitimate pain, and maybe not seeing that the consequences can be pretty dire for some of their patients.
Absolutely.
I'll tell you what we're seeing as a result of the research on this play. We're seeing homeless shelters filled with people addicted to OxyContin, jails filled with people addicted to OxyContin, schools with young people that are overdosing and dying from OxyContin, parents coming to us who've lost their children because of OxyContin. And Florida is ground zero, and I know we have many fine people working to turn that around, but there is a deadly epidemic in our state. And with the Source Theater, we're trying to address that and educate the kids, because they are innocent victims and they are being manipulated, and we're losing them.
And I think law enforcement is very concerned. There are people getting involved with alcohol and drugs who would never go buy heroin and put a needle in their arm.
Right.
But that's in effect what they're doing with prescription pain pills. So what we advise people to do when they go to their doctor is disclose any family history of alcohol and drug abuse, ask your doctor for alternatives for pain management, and make sure that if your doctor gives you 3 refills, to challenge your physician to only maybe give you as much as they think that you'll need till the next visit. So as patients, we can speak up for ourselves and limit the harm that might be visited upon us and our family by this. So it sounds like it's all good advice. So Jane, let's talk a little bit about Manatee Glens and what's available to parents and to kids for alcohol and drug treatment. We have a walk-in center.
We do. We have a walk-in center, and that's available throughout the week. They can come in and they can get screened to see whether or not they need any type of mental health or drug and alcohol counseling.
Parents can also have alcohol and drug tests done.
Testing done right there at the center.
And the hours are, I think, 8 in the morning till 7 at night, Monday through Friday. And the address is 3716 Avenue West, right downtown. You literally can walk in?
Yes, absolutely. They take people right off the
So
street.
if you were concerned about a friend, you can tell them about the walk-in center.
How about if they are from another county? Is that?
The walk-in center is open.
Terrific.
No charge for the first visit.
Because we do hear of a lot of people who are looking for resources. So.
Definitely.
Yeah. And so what else is available?
We also have the Children's Outpatient Substance Abuse Program, and we treat kids from, who might just start to be experimenting, who might be at risk of experimenting with drugs and alcohol, to children that have severe problems. We also have prevention programs where we go out into the school and we educate kids on the dangers of drugs and alcohol, and we do a full curriculum, a life skills curriculum, so hopefully we're addressing some of those underlying issues as to why kids start to use drugs and alcohol.
When it's really serious, there are crisis services at Manatee Glens Hospital and Addiction Center. Tell us how the juvenile addictions receiving facility works in a crisis.
And they can come into our access center where they can get screened and see whether residential treatment is necessary or some period of days, so that they can be stabilized medically and get the help that they need.
Sometimes parents recognize there's a problem and the teens don't. And what parents can do is bring kids to Manatee Glens Hospital and Addiction Center and commit their teen involuntarily for a 3-day evaluation. Under the Marchman Act. Parents can do that under their own authority. Teens can come and ask for help under their own authority. They don't need their parents' permission to ask for an alcohol and drug assessment. So I think that's important information for everybody to know, that there is help, that treatment works.
Absolutely.
And people don't need to feel hopeless or helpless.
What kind of resources are there for people without money?
All of these resources that we just mentioned are supported by state and county government.
Great.
And what we do is we give people discounts based on their ability to pay. So
Terrific.
First visit to the walk-in center is free, first visit to the access center free.
Great. That's
so
awesome.
No one needs to not get care as a teenager because they don't have insurance or they're afraid that their parents may not be able to afford it. So we have to get that word out.
Yeah.
Help is available. So We're starting to come to the end of our program, and I wanted to just touch on binge drinking because you mentioned it earlier. Binge drinking is 4 to 5 drinks in a row. A third of Manatee County high school students in a recent survey admitted to a round of binge drinking in the last month. I know counselors are very concerned about binge drinking at college. So I wonder, Jane, if you could comment on it and the rest of you as well in closing.
Binge drinking is a serious issue, and the consequences of that can just be great. So oftentimes parents might, brush that under the rug that they're just being kids.
They can sleep it off.
Exactly.
But there is alcohol poisoning.
Right. Absolutely. Alcohol poisoning and the poor choices that you make whenever
like
you're
getting
under
behind the wheel, or
Right.
maybe having unprotected sex.
Absolutely.
There you go.
Lots of stupid ideas that seem good when you're
at the time.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you see binge drinking in the teenage world?
Absolutely. And I think when you escalate the problem, when you drink multiple drinks, especially in a short period of time, your judgment gets impaired, and what's stopping you? You don't, the boundaries are blurred. You can just keep going, keep drinking.
Absolutely. Your inhibitions are like out the window at that point.
It's one thing, to drink casually and legally, and at parties and everything, social events, but at a certain point, what's stopping you, your brain is intoxicated.
A habit of 5 drinks in a row is probably a danger sign right there.
Absolutely.
Maybe your drinking can't be controlled.
And a path to addiction as well.
Yeah.
We had a tragic example of that last month in Sarasota, where a young mother, Donna Chen, was jogging at 1:30 in the afternoon with her dog and was hit at 90 miles an hour by a young man, 23 years old, who'd been binge drinking at Siesta Key. And it just has really torn apart her family and our entire community about the seriousness of binge drinking. That here was a boy in the middle of the day who destroyed the life of this mother.
And his own, because he's going to face lifelong consequences. That's a manslaughter charge at best, and he'll be probably spending a long time behind bars before he can even think about resuming his life.
And if you look at the arrests, binge drinking is almost always a factor of some sort of accidents and violent assaults and all kinds. It's just it's a scourge in our society, binge drinking, honestly.
So, you guys thinking about college?
Yes.
Maybe?
Yeah, so I'm currently enrolled. So.
Oh, congratulations. So, binge drinking and alcohol and drug use on college campuses is kind of infamous. There's no parental supervision.
Right.
It's kind of romanticized. This is the time where you can really have fun in your life. So, Jane, what could a teen who may be in recovery, concerned about going into the college environment, what advice do you give them to sort of stay sober and stay sane?
It goes back to that idea that not everybody is doing it. Not everybody is drinking, binge drinking, or using drugs. So it's really important that you have a plan of the type of activities that you want to get involved in. Make sure that you continue to stay around the right people, because there's plenty of kids out there that aren't using drugs.
Sounds like that's
drinking.
good advice for high school, too.
Absolutely.
I want to thank you all for appearing today on the Manatee Glens Report. We're out of time, but I think we really got some good information out, and I hope teens and parents find it helpful. That takes care of this edition of the Manatee Glens Report. Thank you all for talking about this today. Drug and alcohol abuse is a subject I know many parents are afraid to bring up, but one that is so important. Thank you, the audience, for tuning in to the Manatee Glens Report here on METV, where you can learn something new every day. We'll see you next time.